Hello, Ken. How are you this amazing evening?
Oh, Dan, better now that you're here with me, my friend. How are you tonight?
I am excellent.
Good.
So, tonight, I need you to trust me. What is that all about?
Well, first, I always trust you because you've given me no reason not to. And that's what tonight's conversation is about. Tonight, we're going to talk about brand as promise. And we're going to talk about the trust that one builds with a brand over time. We're going to talk about how easily that trust can be broken and what the consequences are. I got a call from a good friend of mine yesterday who's been dealing with a mitral valve issue for almost 2 decades. She's had the same cardiologist for 17 years now. She trusts this guy implicitly. And yesterday she got a call from his office, and the physician's assistant said to her, "I'm so sorry to have to be the one to give you this news, but the condition of your mitral valve has been downgraded from mild to moderate to severe." And as you might imagine, my friend just was stopped in her tracks. It had been a week since the echocardiogram. She hadn't heard anything. She assumed everything was just fine. And now it was, quote, "I'm sorry to have to give you this news." And the first thing that came to my mind as she was telling the story was, you say that to someone when it's a diagnosis of end stage cancer. Like there's no hope, there's nothing we can do. And she asked my friend, "Well, what kind of symptoms and signs are you having?" Just assuming there would be some. And she said, "None." And she asked her if she was exercising. And she said, "Yes, I exercise an hour a day." She asked her what other kind of physical activity she was doing. And she said, "I am literally reflooring the second floor of our home, and I'm carrying crates of flooring up and down a flight of stairs." And she asked her, "Are you short of breath?" "No." "Do you have chest pain?" "No." "Are you dizzy?" "No." And then her response was, well, maybe it's not moderate to severe. Maybe it's just mild to moderate still," which just freaked my friend out even more, that someone could call and say, "I'm sorry to have to be the one to give you this news," and then almost retract it a few moments later. She hadn't talked to the physician yet. She was making this declaration on her own as the story was related to me. And as they went on and on, she said, "We're going to have to do another type of diagnostic test in order to confirm these results," further shaking my friend's confidence in anything that she had said previously. And so what she was left with was this complete lack of trust in any of the information that had just been given. And the icing on the cake yesterday was that the physician's assistant said, "I'll schedule you for this other test, and then we'll move forward with that, but I'm going to have a doctor approve that, and they may say no, and we don't need the test." My friend made the assumption that she'd be communicated with about that, and yet there was nothing. There was no communication. So she doesn't know if she requested the test and the doctor said she doesn't need it because it's not that severe, or she requested the test and the doctor hasn't approved it yet. But long story, even longer, my friend sent a message, an emergency message to her physician, explaining the situation and saying, "I need a call from you now. I need to know what's happening with my heart. It's my heart we're talking about. This isn't like acne. And this is important." It's 24 hours now, and no communication from the office or from the physician. And when I talked to my friend just before we started recording, she said, "I've already put out feelers to other friends who are physicians and asked them for a referral to another cardiologist because I'm done with him." That's a 17-year professional relationship that was ended with one exchange. And I think this is so important because it illustrates the power of trust in building your brand, and how long it can take to actually establish that, and then how quickly it's destroyed. 17 years gone within the span of a few minute conversation. That's what we're talking about tonight, Dan.
That is a very unfortunate story, and I'm sad that your friend had to go through that. What I'm happy about is that she seems to be either not having symptoms, and hopefully it's not as bad as they made it seem in that initial call. At first, it's hard to follow any medical diagnosis. When you say her condition was downgraded, I always have to check myself, right? It's like, are you positive? Am I positive? No, you're negative. Wait, negative, you know what I mean? Like downgraded seems like good. It's like whatever I had is going down. Like my fever is going down, right? It's going downgrade. So I had to kind of follow along. Like when you first said, it's going downgraded, and then you said it's like, that sounds more severe than the other one. Is that up? You know, so anyway, not to make light of it, but it's really hard to follow medical verbiage, because when you first hear it, you think, oh, it's great, it's positive. No, positive means you have it, right? So anyway, that just reminded me of a show that I only saw the pilot episode, but a friend told me to watch it, and it was a comedy. And on it, this woman was waiting for a call back from her doctor, and she had to chose to go to a party. And every time she would miss the call and call right back. And every time she'd call right back, the nurse would answer, or the assistant would answer to the doctor, and would be unwilling to talk to her. And she's like, I just missed the call a minute ago. And she's like, she'll call you back, right? And it's just this like phone tag back and forth. But then what it caused is this buildup in her mind to think, this must be really bad. And it wasn't any better or worse than it was the first time the doctor had called saying, I'd like to tell you the results, right? But when you go back and forth like that, it makes you build it up in your head to be way worse. So what it demonstrates to me is really a huge communication issue, and how fast poor communication can lose faith in a relationship that took you years to build. An example that I had for myself this week was a company that I was looking to do business with. I had gone through literally 5 rounds of different people in this organization to get to the point where I was certain they were hiring me, literally certain. I was like, it's done. I was telling people, I'm like, oh, great, I got another gig. And I was telling them about the gig because it was so clear. It was like everything had just gone perfect, right? It's like, oh, next. And it was almost like, we just need to sign on the dotted line and my next gig is secured. And we get to a Thursday of last week, and their internal person who was doing the paperwork asked me, could you provide a couple of references for some other companies you've worked with? I said, sure, right? So this was Thursday AM. I provide these references. And then on that same email where they asked for references, they said, I'd like you to have a final call, literally called it a final call with so-and-so on Friday. And it was Friday morning, 8:30 a.m. I'm like, great. This is where they're going to say, it's official. Here are the paperwork, sign on the dotted line. And not only do I get a call, but I get a call where it's so unclear what's going on, where they say basically like, how are you feeling about all this? And I'm saying, yeah, I'm feeling great. You're like thinking, I didn't want to say I thought this was over, but they basically are like, yeah, we're going to call your references today. And I'm thinking, I thought you did that yesterday. Why'd you ask me yesterday morning if you're going to call me to tell me you're going to do it today? Then they say, so we'll get back to you by Monday. And I'm thinking, okay, it is what it is. That's right. So I reach out to the 3 references they asked me for, and I let them know, hey, you're probably going to get a call. It's about this, appreciate you saying nice things. Well, by 5 o'clock that day, 0 people had gotten calls. 0. I gotten calls. And now I am starting to worry a little bit, like, what's going on? Are they having second thoughts about me? I don't know. So I started with my main point of contact there, because we had texted a couple times back and forth to schedule some of these meetings. And I just said, hey, did everything go well today? And no response, which makes me worry even more, like, oh, that's weird, right? And then I basically was like, you had me concerned. And they say, oh, so sorry. don't be concerned. I was out at an anniversary dinner. This is now 5:30 in the afternoon. It's okay. Anniversary dinner. And I was like, so sorry to disrupt. I look forward to hearing from you on Monday. Well, in this short text exchange, this person literally said to me, quote, I promise everything's great. I promise you'll hear back from me Monday. Well, you see where I'm going with this. We get to Monday, and not only do I not hear from this person, they have not checked any references still. And I hear from a different person who is now delaying things even further. So what it did for me is to say, I don't think I want to work with this company. Literally, it went from me excited, having looked at all these things going so well and excited, like, this is great. This is the next thing I'll be working on, to me saying, what the heck? I don't want to work with these people. They went from people that I thought I was excited about to people I don't even know if I trust anymore. Not like trust like they're out to hurt me, but just such poor communication in the sense that all you had to do Friday morning is say, we won't be calling any of your references today because I'm out celebrating my anniversary. I'm going to get to that Monday. And then I would have been like, makes sense. Enjoy your anniversary. But that was not communicated. It was simply said, we're going to call your references today. If you weren't going to do it, why'd you tell me you're going to do it? If you weren't going to call me Monday, why did you write twice? Have a great weekend. I promise I'll call you Monday if that was not your plan. So anyway, I empathize in a totally different non-health related situation of how much bad communication can destroy something that, in her case, 17 years of a great relationship. In my case, a very short couple of weeks of good communication, but to make me doubt everything that I'd felt so good about prior to that, things running off the rails.
It's a great story. It's a great story in that it's dramatic and it illustrates a point. It's not great what's happening. There's a couple of things I want to touch on. So I think the first is just to restate something that's so essential. The number one reason for upset in business are unfulfilled or unmet expectations. And the number one reason for unmet or unfulfilled expectations are poor communications. It's every single time it comes down to it. Didn't get communicated, got communicated wrong. The expectation wasn't set up properly. They weren't aligned. It's the most basic stuff, and yet it is the number one reason for upset in business, and I would say for upset in life in general, right? Second piece, I'll get to myself in a second because I have a similar story that illustrates this too with a potential client I've been working with. The second piece, though, is I don't think many companies have communication protocol in place, like where they actually talk about, in the case of this doctor's office, hey, as a physician's assistant, you have the right to do the following things. If you're going to make a call to somebody, make sure that you go through the checklist. And I've shared before, I'm a private pilot. We have checklists for everything. We have pre-flight checklists. We have taxi checklists. We have emergency checklists in case you have an engine out midair and you have to do an emergency landing. We have pre-landing checklists and we have shutdown checklists. We have them all. You go through them all. There's a reason. You don't want to miss something. When you're 10,000 feet in the air, it counts even more. And when you're dealing with somebody's heart, it counts even more. And certainly when you're dealing with somebody's job, that's important too. But I would really encourage anyone listening to this to think about what kind of protocol, like actual protocol, do you have in place for how you communicate? Do you have a 24-hour turnaround time? Do you state it? Do you have a same-day turnaround time? Do you have a 48-hour turnaround time? Whatever it is, are you actually doing what you say you will do? Because if you're not, if all this is about is putting out a policy that you think sounds good, but you're not following up on it, it's going to return to bite you in the butt, and in a big way. Think about your protocol. Think about what it is you say you do to communicate back to your clients, to your trade partners, to your colleagues, to your fellow employees. What are those things that you're going to do, and then stick to it? The second thing that I'd say, and I've noticed this recently, there's a hierarchy of integrity. If I say I'm going to call somebody back and they're a current client, I am on it in like, without exception. If I tell, my dad who's coming up on 96 years old, I'll call you this afternoon. We'll talk about your book that you're reading. I'm going to do it. It's my dad. I am guilty of saying to a friend, yeah, I'll give you a call this afternoon. And then this afternoon comes and goes. And the next day I say, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to you, man. Oh, no, no worries. No worries. Right. But the fact is, I wasn't my word. I was out of integrity. As small as that may sound, those are getting our reps in the wrong way. And I always advise clients, promise less, deliver more. Make fewer promises, but deliver on more of them. You should be delivering on all of them. But we're so eager to say, I'll get back to you. We'll check your references today. We'll contact you on Monday. No, you won't. Either you had no intention of doing it, or you simply weren't able to because you took on too much without thinking through. We make promises without thinking through first what our workload is like for the day and whether or not that stuff can actually happen. And to your point, Dan, I'm experiencing the same thing with a prospective client with, I'll get back to you on Tuesday. Tuesday comes and goes. Sorry, we were busy. And it's Friday now. Can we regroup for next week? Sure. But, I finally said, man, it seems like all of you are having a hard time following through on what you said you're going to do. Why don't we take a pause for a month? I'll reach back out to you in a month and let's see how things go then. And there was like great relief on their part. That's fantastic. I have no idea where that's going to go, but I knew that I didn't want to continue to develop like bad feelings towards them for not following through. So my strategy was just to pause it. And I appreciate where you're at with like, all of a sudden, I want to work with them to, I don't know if I trust them. And that really is the heart of all of this. We're in relationship with each other. Business is really, to me, just an opportunity for us to be related one to another. And relationships at their heart depend on trust for them to function. Without that, they're nothing.
My favorite definition of self-esteem is the ability to trust yourself, and to trust yourself when you say you're going to do something to follow through. And I think we tend as humans to put our own rules upon other people, and that causes obviously frustration, right? But it can be as simple as implementing a policy that says, I'm just going to do what I said I'm going to do, right? So like I might be the type of person who says, that's my rule. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do because I have high self-esteem. I trust myself. I know I'm going to follow through in my commitments. So I immediately just place that upon other people. So to anybody listening to this, I would just say that should just be a standard rule of being a human, an adult human, right? That you just follow through. Whatever you say you're going to do, you just do it. And I like this analogy because it's based on how you get something to actually work. It comes from McDonald's when they came out with the supersize menu, and they later got rid of it because of the documentary about supersize. But when they came out with the supersize size above large, they had a big campaign to try to get people to supersize their value meal or whatever they called it. And the adoption rate, I'm paraphrasing the numbers, was very low. It was 10% of people would actually supersize it. And they decided that the problem was not people not wanting to do it, but it was not implemented enough times, right? Meaning the person at the cash register was not actually asking every person, would you like to supersize that? It was inconsistent at the number of times it was being asked. So they did, I believe, two things. They put a little pin on their outfit that said, supersize it or whatever, or would you like to supersize it? And then the manager kind of stood over them and reminded them, you have to ask everybody, like ask him to supersize, ask him to supersize. And then it like tripled the amount of adoption rate. The number of people who supersize maybe went from like 10% to 30%, whatever the numbers turned out to be. The point of the story is simple. If you just want to adopt one thing, one takeaway from everything we talked about today, it would be to adopt your own rule, which should be the standard rule amongst all humans, which is I do what I say I'm going to do. Whatever I commit to specifically, that's an even stronger saying what you're going to do. But anytime I tell someone, I will give you a call Monday, I will reach out to you, I will follow up on that, let me get back to you on that, to actually commit to it and give yourself some way to remind you until that becomes your go-to. Just like it took the manager tapping them on the shoulder and putting a little pin on their thing to remind them enough times so they got increased adoption. The goal for everybody is to have increased adoption, that this becomes your standard. And hopefully this little podcast can spread out and more people can pay it forward and do as they want others to do unto them, which is be a person of integrity, be a person who you can trust.
My closing quote is this, and it's from Dwight D. Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower was the 34th president of the United States. He was the supreme Allied commander in World War II in Europe. He was responsible for supervising the invasion of Normandy, and without him, who knows where the world would be today. And I close my book with his quote because it is my favorite. And he says, the supreme quality for leadership is unquestionably integrity. Without it, no real success is possible, no matter whether it is on a section gang, a football field, in an army, or in an office. And that is simply doing what you say you're going to do. That's all it is. Integrity is your word is good and that people can trust it. So I hope too, like Dan mentioned, that today's podcast inspires you to think about your word. Every time you say something, every time you say you're going to do something, you are giving your word. You don't have to say, I promise. That's like what a 5-year-old does, you know? If it's your word, if it comes out of your mouth, it should be good. People should be able to count on it. And I hope you give that some thought because it matters. It matters for your interactions with other people, matters for your business and its success.